What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to DylanTalksTone. Today I have a very important question for you. When you see a premium instrument like this, or this, or this, what are some of the first questions that come to your mind besides, what is that? Some of the questions or comments we often see are, well, that guitar has a feature that doesn't affect tone, therefore I'm not going to spend the money for it and I'm going to buy something more inexpensive. Conversely, some folks will ask, does it have a particular feature, like let's say nitrocellulose finish, or a long neck tenon, or some other feature that is commonly found in like vintage, very valuable instruments. And if it doesn't have that feature, they don't want it. So what ends up happening is we end up compiling a mental spreadsheet of features that we do or don't think are worth buying, right? But here's the problem. This is not a spreadsheet. A guitar is not a spreadsheet. It is like a vessel and a tool of creativity and inspiration. So while you may be technically correct that a particular feature or something that costs a little more, maybe, or makes a guitar cost more than you think it should, or etc., is not something having anything to do with the tone, and you might be correct. So let me ask you, this is more about yourself than about the guitar. Are you a spreadsheet shopper or are you a guitar enthusiast? That's the question. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at a guitar today and we're going to talk about various features that may or may not be important to you, but I'm going to talk about why guitar enthusiasts, okay, people that just like guitar stuff, think things are important. Doesn't mean that you'll find them important, but I just think it's fun to think about. What guitar parts have nothing to do with tone, but they still really matter? Some folks might look at this Les Paul and see a nitrocellulose finish and say, yeah, that makes the guitar a lot more expensive. I don't care about it. I don't really want it. It has nothing to do with the tone, so I'm not going to spend the money. So you can save a lot of money by buying a guitar like this with a nitrocellulose finish, right? About 500 bucks. It's cool. It's awesome. Or this extremely premium Texas Toast Guitars HST also has a urethane finish. And you might say, well, for $2,500, it should have a nitrocellulose finish. So yes, I agree with you. None of this matters, right? So let's talk about various aspects of nitrocellulose and urethane style finishes that are awesome. First of all, nitrocellulose finishes, and it's not nitro, that is a fuel for a race car. We're talking about nitrocellulose in its more modern form, which is not the same as it used to be, okay? One of the things that will happen with it, like that Les Paul, is the finish dulls out very quickly, right? You even use a different polish. I have some lizard spit polish. You use a different polish on it. It just feels different. It wears different. It actually ages different, right? Because it continues to kind of break down almost. The other thing is when it's on the neck part of the guitar, it actually will break down with certain people's skin and chemical makeup. It will feel different. It will feel sticky, right? So it's not always a benefit or a curse to the guitar. Like, I like both nitrocellulose finishes, like that Les Paul, I love it. I also like urethane finishes when they're done properly, like this one. The finish on this guitar is extremely thin. So what we've got is we've got a urethane finish sprayed, right? Like a base, like a clear coat. And then it is actually color sanded, wet sanded, and polished to a very thin finish, right? So we're not talking about 1985 Stratocaster with that huge, thick plastic feeling stuff, right? On the back, this is about as minimal a finish as you can get on a guitar, even though it's polyurethane-ish, because it has been sprayed, and then it has been sanded, right? And then the matte finish there is actually something that sort of, when you spray it on the guitar, it starts shiny, and then it kind of turns to this matte finish. But this is very, very thin. if you were to chip this guitar, which I don't want to because this guitar is for sale. Oh, also, I should mention, this guitar is available at DylanTalksTone, and there is another color available for pre-order because we already sold a couple of the brown ones. So they are available as a pre-order, as well as this particular one is available for immediate shipment if it's something you're interested in. If not, that's okay too. Check out everything else that we've got going at DylanTalksTone, pickups and parts and pots and caps and all that kind of stuff. Thanks for hanging out. It's not thick, right? It's very, very thin. It feels awesome. The finish is very slick. So we might want to justify a price of a guitar because we like the finish, or we might want to save money by not having it, but it doesn't really matter. None of it really matters. It's how does it feel? How does it age? And what do you want out of that guitar? Do you want it to look brand new for the entire life of the guitar? I would lean towards something with a urethane finish. Don't expect that just because a guitar costs a certain amount of money, it should have a particular finish one way or the other. It just really has to do with how the guitar is going to wear over time. Do you want it to always look like this? Or do you want it to be like a Les Paul where it's at risk of checking over time, dulling out, which I also love. I love that. But I also love this. So there's no real one answer to this question. There are other aspects to the appearance of a guitar that a lot of folks will, have feelings on, right? So this is actually a 1/4 inch thick maple top. It's not a laminate. And then there's like this taped off reveal binding that goes around the outside. It's kind of, I love it the way it is. The top, it gives it a real depth, right? Like when he puts the finish on it, it gives it a real depth and it looks really, really nice. Now, does that have anything to do with the tone? You could argue about tone wood all day long. The bottom line is, if the guitar sounds good, it is good, and this guitar sounds good. So it doesn't really matter. PRS guitars, for example, like an SE, will have a laminate top, right? And it looks beautiful, and it fulfills the purpose at that price point. But when you're looking for something a little more premium, even though it doesn't really matter, having that 1/4 inch top is very, very cool. The other thing it allows you to do when you have a top like this is it allows you to do various weight relieving things and be more, like accurate about the balance of the guitar and stuff, because then when you put the top on, you don't know any of that's going on. And like I said, when it sounds good, it is good. So it doesn't necessarily matter what the guitar is made out of. I think a lot of folks will say that, a particular wood belongs in a particular price point, but what it really comes down to is the finished product and the appeal of it. When we have a bound neck like this with maple binding and lumen laid dots, that's really, really cool, right? Does it have anything to do with the tone? No, it's really cool though. One of the things I really like about this guitar is how the black kingwood fretboard actually shows underneath the binding, so it gives it this really pretty black stripe right here, right? That takes time, that takes effort, which means it costs money. Does it have anything to do with the tone? Absolutely not, but man, is it pretty. I love it. And so any of the guitars that we actually do exclusive specs with Texas Toast guitars, I always have them do this because I think it's so cool. I just love the way that looks. Again, nothing to do with the tone, but as an enthusiast, I'm like, dang, that's cool. Now let's talk about hardware. Let's go back to the $500 guitar. Now, this is one of those Stratocaster standards, right, from Indonesia, and it's a great guitar. It plays really good. It's pretty awesome. One of the improvements that this guitar over like the Squiers they've made is the quality of the hardware. Now, you might say, well, hardware's hardware, it's fine as long as it works. Sometimes you can overspend on bridges and stuff like that with gimmicky sustain things built in and whatever. I'll let you be the judge of whether you think that matters on your guitar. So you can spend a lot of money for that stuff, or you can kind of scrimp on hardware when you buy a very inexpensive guitar. This is an excellent compromise. So this particular bridge has higher quality parts in it than, for example, a Squier. And what I mean by that is, the Squiers are awesome. The vintage correct ones they're great. But when you put a screwdriver in the screw and you turn it, the metallurgy is actually different. So like it strips out easier on cheaper hardware. Sometimes cheaper hardware is not as adjustable. sometimes the longevity of the hardware with corrosion and such is not as long-lasting as more expensive hardware. Now, does it matter on an inexpensive guitar? Not really, because it might not be that you play it very much. It might not be that it's exposed to the elements. It might not be that you're going to keep the guitar very long. So that's totally fine. However, when you buy a premium instrument, sometimes there's a few things that are important. And important to me are A, longevity and durability, right? So you take this Hipshot hardware, for example, the way it's chromed, the way it's finished, makes it more expensive. It does, right? So, but the quality of the hardware itself, when you move these saddles back and forth, the little screws don't actually score the chrome underneath, leading to corrosion, right? Yes, it's more expensive, but it has a practical purpose. The hardness of the screws, the adjusting screws, means that when you use a screwdriver on them for years and years and years, if you need to make adjustments from time to time, you will not wear those screws out. You will not accidentally strip them out, provided you use quality tools. So making sure that you can use this guitar for a long time. Now, you might look at this guitar and go the other extreme and say, well, that guitar of that price point should have a particular bridge type. Maybe it should be a Tune-O-Matic. Maybe it should be whatever. Honestly, that's builder's choice, right? And again, if it sounds good, it is good. So we've got a string through situation on this guitar, which is awesome and it sounds great. So it doesn't really matter, right? It doesn't matter to the tone if the tone is good. Does it sound the way you want it to sound? That's a different story, but the guitar was constructed well with quality hardware that will last a very long time. That's really, really important. The same thing with the tuners, for example. Hipshot tuners are not inexpensive. They're more expensive tuners. Do they have anything to do with the tone? Some folks think that the weight of the tuner and such might, but what I really care about is durability and reliability, right? So if you're gonna spend some dough on a guitar, you want it to be reliable, you want it to last a long time, and you want it to look pretty. The next thing that a lot of folks might not think is that important to the tone is the actual materials that are selected for the build and how they are constructed, right? So you might say, well, you might be a person who sticks with bolt-on necks, for example, because they may be, associated with more inexpensive guitars. Or you may see a bolt-on neck guitar with a very premium price tag, and you might say, for that money, it should be set neck, etc., right? Honestly, this goes back to if it sounds good, it is good. Wood selection. If it sounds good, it is good. If the wood, what's probably more important to this, and if you've ever seen any of the Paul Reed Smith videos that we've seen, talking about wood selection and the care of the wood before the construction of the guitar so that it is always stable and always works well, right? The other thing that folks will talk about is for a particular, one of the things I hear a lot is for a particular price point, the woods should be the familiar things that you always know. So mahogany, maple, rosewood. Like for example, this guitar has this black kingwood, which is basically, it is a caramelized torrefied wood that has a texture sort of like rosewood, but the hardness of ebony. And I really, really like it. And I love the way it looks. So when we spec'd this guitar, we went with that because I think it's really, really beautiful. And it just feels good, right? And that's what really matters. If the guitar feels good to you, if it is comfortable, if it is balanced, then the construction type, right? The bolt-on neck, the string through, whether it's Tune-O-Matic, like all of the architecture of the guitar, long tenon, short tenon. Now we want to make sure that the guitar is reliable. I happen to know that the tenon on this guitar goes way down here. But those are all builder spec things that really happen before you and I get the guitar and don't really matter once we get it. And it doesn't matter necessarily, like let's say that this tenon length wasn't exactly to some vintage spec that you associate with success or associate with value, right? It doesn't really matter as long as the function of the guitar and the designer of the guitar was thoughtful in the entire design, right? That's all that really matters when it comes to that kind of stuff. Now let's talk about one thing that probably does have something to do with tone, but I think we associate cost a lot with this. To me, it's more personal choice than it is cost-benefit ratio. And that is the electronics that we put in the guitar. When it comes to the controls, so our pots down here, we want reliability, right? I want a good switch that's not going to wear out in 2 years, right? I want pots that don't get scratchy after a couple of years, especially if I'm paying a premium for this instrument. So I want them to be quality. Do I care that the cap in there is, you know, some $70 paper and oil bumblebee thing? No. I just want the cap to be of good quality, that's not going to drift, that is within spec, that does not have a tolerance that doesn't make sense. So I just want a quality piece. That's all I care. All right, let's talk pickups. Pickups are my favorite thing, obviously, because I make pickups. And you're going to say, well, wait a minute. That's exactly what makes tone difference in a guitar. Yes, but it doesn't really matter, right? Like, as long as it sounds good, it is good. As long as the pickup choices that are available, no matter what they're made of, it doesn't matter. If you like them, you like them. I always tell people, even with a very inexpensive guitar, if you like how it sounds, right, then don't let anybody tell you that you need something different. I always say, if you have an inexpensive guitar and you play it, or even an expensive one, doesn't matter, and you decide that you like the pickups, then you just saved yourself $300. You know what I mean? Like, just like what you like and enjoy it. It doesn't matter. Now, for the enthusiast, like myself, and maybe like many of you, you're going to want to know what's out there and what's available. And the cool part about the pickup thing is that there are voices that can be had. You can change up what the guitar does. I want to do a whole separate video on just that, on just understanding the tonal changes that can happen even in one kind of a pickup. I want to do a video about that. But for the sake of our conversation, just having choices is fun if you're an enthusiast. You know, going down an options list on anything, a new car, whatever it is super fun to be able to personalize it to yourself and reach your own tonal goals, which is super fun. So while it doesn't really matter as long as you like the guitar, the enthusiast in me is going to be like, I like this particular pickup with this combination, etc. So there's kind of two different ways to look at it, but it's all literally just for fun. So what's the point of all this? None of this stuff matters unless you're an enthusiast about guitars. If you are a person who just orders off of the spreadsheet, the spec sheet, and all you care about is price, right? Dollars per feature, dollars per pound. You know what I mean? Like, if you place a financial value on every aspect of an instrument, then maybe a lot of these things will not matter to you, and they will continue to not matter to you, which is totally fine because it's a completely different a way to approach the instrument, right? But if you are a real guitar enthusiast and you are kind of a nerd about this stuff, like I am, and really enjoy learning all these little aspects and understanding the value, the time, the skill required, all those things that go into a premium instrument, understanding the cost, understanding the labor, understanding the value, all those various things, then all this stuff does matter because it's super. But honestly, at the end of the day, it's because it's fun. It's because we really, really like it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Are you a person who just cares about the spec and the kind of dollars per pound that the guitar costs? Or are you somebody who says, you know, I want a feeling, the intangible thing. I want a vibe. I want something I can share with somebody else. What is it? What is it? Let me know in the comments. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on this. You can get this guitar at DylanTalksTone, like I said earlier. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you in the next video.